Good afternoon and welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier, and I apologize for my absence yesterday. Let me start with the article I wrote, which is the fourth in a series which I started on the 27th of January. I essentially am saying that the viral moment has arrived, and I am in no doubt about that. Have a look at the article. It's the first link on Rich Wrap-Ups, and it's on the front page, dated the 24th of February. Richard Engel: if you see one cockroach, you know there are more. And this is the fundamental point when you look at these statistics, which are presented in such a linear manner. They just make no sense because they are nonsense. Let me start with some macro thoughts. Over the weekend, I got into a conversation with Henrik, and I said at this point I would venture gold is correlated to the coronavirus, which is set to turn parabolic and is already non-linear and exponential. And as Paul Virilio described it, it has escape velocity. We've had a little bit of a trade-off from the highs yesterday. We're currently at 1641.50. I think you buy it with all you've got right now. And this is a little bit of a gift. It's seen some profit taking, and I think it's a perfect setup right now. Obviously, the market moves in waves, and the wave was, we got very panic-stricken yesterday. Some of that panic came off the boil, and we're going to get even more panic-stricken, and we're going to be at panic stations. And I estimate, as I said in my article, we'll see a $2,000 print in gold this year. Yesterday, we had a vicious sell-off in New York, in the Breadth. This is from Tommy Thornton, one of the worst days in years. That was reiterated by David Inglis. Monday's sell-off is right up there with some of the worst days in the last 10 years. Purple, Virus Monday; blue, Volmageddon; green, Brexit referendum; yellow, renminbi devaluation; cyan, Fed tapering tantrum; red, European debt crises. And we're going to see a lot more volatility over the next few sessions. I saw that Donald Trump said the market looked cheap, or words to that effect, but I think his tremendous skills at massaging the market are going to be found wanting in the face of this viral phenomena. Home Thoughts: Kilimanjaro, mountain of peace and tranquility, Paula Kahumbu. And in this wild year we've had so far, a mountain of peace and tranquility is indeed an attractive thought. Quintessential Africa: two of the most recognizable icons of Africa, Mount Kilimanjaro and the African bush elephant, again at Amboseli National Park via Kenya Pics. This is the Taj Mahal, views of India photography of Raja Deen Dayal, taken in 1887, and at the ROM Toronto via Kamles M. Paul Virilio, in his book The Administration of Fear, writes, speed now illuminates reality, whereas light once gave objects of the world their shape. He is a phenomenal thinker, and he talks a lot about speed and virality. And he's worth reading. His books are very short, but so powerful. The highest peak, Batian, as seen from Lenana, Mount Kenya. That's from my friend M.G. Mambo, who is not only a photographer, but a mountain climber. Political reflections: across a 21-kilometer stretch upon landing, Trump, FLOTUS, Ivanka Trump were treated to 1,800 plus Spectacular dancers in full costumes all the way to the stadium. Prime Minister Narendra Modi brought a game. That's from Leon Lidigu. And indeed, he did it in Bollywood style. However, look at this short video from Shashi Tharoor to see what was going on in the background. It's quite extraordinary. And as you know, I think the politics of ethnocratic nationalism, which Narendra Modi pursues, and so does Donald Trump, and I think the Indian economy has nosedived because of the consequences of those politics. It is hard to see where Ankara goes with a February deadline while Assad forces capture numbers of villages in a day in Idlib and wounding, killing Turkish soldiers with Russian involvement. Whilst I accept Turkey has a sophisticated and muscular military, I have to wonder if, after all those purges, the military is actually not as strong as Erdogan might believe. And philosophically, I think it's outrageous that he's sitting in another country as he is in this case, and he should be removed. I feel like networked, multi-sited epidemic system suspiciously sounds like a P word, pandemic word, that I know. But what do I know? I only stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night. Dr. Eric Ding, speaking to the characterization of the virus that Dr. Tedros has recently produced out of thin air. WHO says no longer uses pandemic category, but the virus is still an emergency. What is absolutely clear now is that we're dealing with a virus that has turned exponential and non-linear and is a pandemic, I wrote in my most recent article. Dr. Tedros calls it epidemics in different parts of the world, affecting countries in different ways. Now, what we do know, according to the stats that we have received, is coronavirus cases have topped 80,000, with ex-China outbreak surges in many different locations: Italy, Iran, South Korea, and Japan, which is doing a China and trying to hide the data points. Good updated summary of the epidemic and what we know so far. This stood out: 14.8% of confirmed cases among health workers were classified as severe or critical. Dr. Eric Ding again. And you will recall that the Chinese specifically asked their doctors not to wear hazmat suits in order not to panic the public. And the consequences of that is that you're seeing enormous attrition amongst your frontline doctors. As I said in my article, the viral moment has arrived. Daily new cases in China, excluding Hubei province and the rest of the world. This is from Jody Graphics 15, well worth following. Beautiful visual presentation. Very interesting Macro Voices podcast with Epsilon Theory, Bianco Research, Chris Martinson and Mish Jair. Well worth listening to. COVID-19 deaths worldwide, excluding China, Iran 12, but there was an MP saying 50, South Korea 8, Italy 7, cruise ship 3, Hong Kong 2, Philippines 1, Japan 1, France 1, and Taiwan 1. I believe we're past the point of no return. Then there's another update, daily new cases in China, excluding Hubei province and the rest of the world. This is another interesting visualization because it shows you the seeding event outside China is now gaining significant traction. If you see one cockroach, you know there are many more, Richard Engel. Now, in my article, I quoted Nassim Taleb. They are born, put in a box, they go home to live in a box, they study by ticking boxes. They go to what is called work in a box, where they sit in their cubicle box. They drive to the grocery store in a box to buy food in a box. They talk about thinking outside of the box. And when they die, they are put in a box. And I was referencing our policymakers and economists. The IMF calculated a 0.1% reduction in global growth. Tedros is, I think, the most linear of linear thinkers anywhere in the world. The PBOC spoke of a V-shaped recovery. None of that is going to happen by a long shot. This is Suzanne ZH774555188 sending a message in Chinese to Dr. Tedros. Doctors and the WHO don't understand multiplication. They understand medicine and addition, not multiplication. This is Taleb. When we posted this on Jan 26, there were 1,000 casualties. Today, 79,000. Unless we overreact, at that rate, in 1 month can reach huge numbers, and this is the point about non-linearity. The number of fin-twits who shout alarmist at anyone preparing for a high-severity uncertainty event with low but probably increasing probability types is staggering. That's W.R. Green, and I can't agree more. Taleb, when paranoid, you can be wrong 1,000 times and you will survive. If non-paranoid, wrong once and you, your genes, and the rest of your group are done. It is a huge mystery that academics who deal with risk, rationality, sub-forecasting and super-forecasting fail to get it. Took me back to William Burroughs. A paranoid is someone who knows a little of what's going on. In my article, I was responding to Bianco research, and I said what I find incredible is the acceptance of a crock of statistics which are hocus pocus. Are the markets and folks in general illiterate? Financial Times, sharp fall in coronavirus cases undermined by questionable data. You can say that again. As President Xi Jinping vows to restart China's economy, a marked slowdown in reported new coronavirus cases is helping his cause. It's a very short-sighted thing he's seeking to do. He's worried about the economy, but you put people back into factories and dense, hyper-connected spaces, you know what's going to happen. Over the past 2 weeks, the number of new confirmed cases has dropped by more than 80%. We don't know whether the case numbers tell us about the real trend in incidence or are just a result of testing practices, said Benjamin Cowling, head of epidemiology at Hong Kong University. Over the last week, the virus has become politicized, with Xi Jinping stepping back center stage, said Rodney Jones, a veteran Asia watcher at Wigram Capital Advisors. The dilemma for local governments is that high infection rates would now be seen as directly undermining Xi. Speaking on Monday at a press conference organized by the NHC, he added, "The decline that we see is real." Neil Ferguson, Professor of Epidemiology at Imperial College London, said he stood by his initial estimate that only 1 in 10 infections in China had been detected. Hubei has been doing a blanket search and quarantine of all suspected infected cases, which possibly reduced the transmission rate, the person said. Jianghu Dong, a biostatistics expert at the University of Nebraska Medical Center, said the virus epidemic has been a big lesson for our government in China. We really hope that we can set up a transparent testing and reporting system. Xi has extensive experience at silencing viral ideas, but controlling an actual virus itself is outside his experience. At the very least, we can say he appears to be playing a high-risk game, Asia Times. As I said on the occasion of the 70th anniversary of the Chinese Communist Party, the world in the 21st century exhibits viral wildfire and exponential characteristics and feedback loops, which only become obvious in hindsight. And I also said a non-linear and exponential virus represents the greatest risk to a control machine in point of fact. Professor Alan Bartlett via Macroeconomics 1, the greatest shortcoming of the human race is our inability to understand the exponential function. I'll take you to a poem. Let me tell you, world, I do not believe. If 1,000 challenges lie beneath your feet, count me as number 1,001. I don't believe the sky is blue. I don't believe in thunder's echoes. I don't believe that dreams are false. I don't believe that death has no revenge. More glitched official statistical figures of the Wuhan coronavirus from China. That's from W.B. Yeats, 1865. Hubei province, 203 new confirmed cases. Wuhan, which is the capital of Hubei province, 406 new confirmed cases. And this is the story throughout these data sets. 0 new confirmed cases in all other cities in Hubei province. Unbelievable. That's why I quoted Groucho Marx. Who are you going to believe, me or your own eyes? Bianco Research. It should be 0 or very close to it. And if it is not close to 0, it underscores how statistics from China are made up. Actually, it is an insult to common sense that a shutdown country should see its PMI merely downtick from 50 to 47. Rush Limbaugh, it looks like the coronavirus is being weaponized as yet another element to bring down Donald Trump. Now, I want to tell you the truth about the coronavirus. The coronavirus is the common cold, folks. A very interesting interview worth looking at. The Alt World US Biowarfare Act author studies confirm coronavirus weaponized. Professor Francis Boyle uncovers 4 separate studies which he claims confirm as smoking gun evidence the Wuhan coronavirus, now known as COVID-19, was in fact weaponized. He's highly articulate and very credible. It's a video interview. As I said on the 3rd of February, there is no doubt there is a novel sequence in this 2019 coronavirus. Have a look at this sequence alignment dot plot and you can see exactly where there's been an insert. Option 4, a recombined virus made in a laboratory for the purpose of creating a vaccine. The disease progression in 2019 NCOV is consistent with those seen in animals and humans vaccinated against SARS and then challenged with reinfection. Thus, the hypothesis that 2019 NCOV is an experimental vaccine type must be seriously considered. Then, on the 3rd of February, the virus does not have a clear monophyletic support given the bootstrap value of 75. That's where that sequence breaks. And then we had another report, which I think has been subsequently pulled, the possible origins of the 2019 NCOV coronavirus Botao Xiao and Lei Xiao. Surgery was performed on the caged animals, and the tissue samples were collected for DNA and RNA extraction and sequencing. The tissue samples and contaminated trashes were the source of pathogens. They were only 280 meters from the seafood market. The WHCDC was also adjacent to the Union Hospital, where the first group of doctors were infected during this epidemic. It is plausible that the virus leaked around and some of them contaminated the initial patients in this epidemic. Though solid proofs are needed in future study, the second laboratory was 12 kilometers from the seafood market and belonged to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. This laboratory reported that the Chinese horseshoe bats were natural reservoirs for the severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus, which caused the 2002-2003 pandemic. The principal investigator participated in a project which generated a chimeric virus using the SARS-CoV reverse genetic system and reported the potential for human emergence. A direct speculation was that SARS-CoV or its derivative might leak from the laboratory. In summary, somebody was entangled with the evolution of the 2019 nCoV coronavirus. And I find that quite credible. Let's move on to international markets. The euro currently trading at 108. Let me just get it up here as the internet went down. 108, where are we? 108.56. Dollar index 99.269. Japanese yen 110.67. Swiss franc 0.9796. The pound 129.60. The Australian dollar 0.6612. India rupee 71.862, South Korean won 12.21, Brazilian real 4.38, Egyptian pound 15.58, and the rand 15.09. This is a dollar index chart from Leandro Daniel M4. I think we're going to vault 100 after this churning and pullback is over. Euro dollar, we're getting a little bit of a move higher, 108.56. I don't think it's going to last, and I think we're going to 106 and then parity. The coronavirus has finally toppled the market kingpins, big cap tech and high PE software names getting slammed. That was during or towards the end of the trading session yesterday via the stalwart. And I take you back to Malcolm Gladwell, the tipping point, moment in an epidemic when a virus reaches critical mass. Commodity markets, Bloomberg Commodity Index, this is from J.S. Blokland. I think you resell that, but you strip out the precious metals, which I'm expecting to go higher. WTI crude oil, $51.63. I think you can sell the rebound whenever you get it. Emerging markets, EM hasn't recorded big outflows until the last few days. This is the left-hand side. Flow to non-China EM only just went negative, right-hand side. Two implications, little flow underlying FX moves so far. Lots of flow selling, perhaps still coming. That's Robin Brooks, IIF. I agree with that conclusion. Lots of flow selling, perhaps still coming. And this goes back to that article I wrote on the 2nd of September before this virus hit, and I was talking about the China EM frontier feedback loop phenomenon. And I said this phenomenon was positive for the last 2 decades, but has now undergone a trend reversal. The fallout is being experienced as far away as Germany. The rand is the purest proxy for this phenomenon, and the Brazilian real is turning out to be as well. African countries, heavily dependent on China, being the main taker, are also at the bleeding edge of this phenomenon. And I said then, without the added pressure of the virus, that this pressure point will not ease soon, but will continue to intensify. Emerging market currencies have fallen to a new all-time low against the US dollar. That's from J.S. Blokland. Sub-Saharan Africa, the Mo Ibrahim Foundation, 2020 Ibrahim Governance Weekend, scheduled to take place 3rd to the 5th of April in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, is postponed due to evolving public health risks related to the coronavirus and COVID-19 outbreak. Mo Ibrahim Foundation announces that the 2020 Ibrahim Governance Weekend is postponed due to evolving public health risks related to the coronavirus. Following consultation with the government of Ethiopia, WHO officials and high-level experts, the board has taken the decision to postpone the event. This was inevitable, predicted and predictable. But I think that the guillotine nature of that announcement is suddenly going to wake up a whole lot of people. What is most troubling of all is the situation or curious lack thereof in Africa. The prevailing theory about Africa is that a lack of medical facilities and testing capacity may mean the virus is spreading silently. You can bet on that. The WHO has been working to get testing kits and other preparedness measures in place in Africa for when, not if, the virus takes hold. 27th of January, in my first series of articles, I said I have to assume that the coronavirus is already in Africa but just not diagnosed. That's a racing certainty. I think most airports, it seems, got some thermometers in the last week or so. In that same article, I was speaking about escape velocity and how viruses exhibit non-linear and exponential characteristics. Within Africa, Egypt, South Africa, Ethiopia, Mauritius, Morocco, Nigeria, and Kenya top the list. Bole is the epicenter of China-Africa connectedness. Zero Hedge said this could mean super spreaders during the incubation period, undetected by temperature readings or showing no symptoms, likely invaded Africa from China via Ethiopia's main airport. Bet on that too. On average, 1,500 passengers per day arrive from China in Addis. Ethiopia scans all passengers from Asia for symptoms, which essentially means taking their temperature. CNN, I don't think airport temperature checks have any major effect on stopping or even slowing down transmission. That was Michael Osterholm, an epidemiologist and professor at the University of Minnesota School of Public Health. Bill Gates, this disease when it comes to Africa will be more dramatic than in China, and I don't want to play down what is happening in China, he said. Moving on, this is supposed to be a prison. Video as received. That's via Abramji, who's got this amazing Twitter feed of crime in South Africa. Have a look at that. It's a 2-minute video. They seem to be having a party in prison. Going back, as I said, the RAND is the purest proxy for the China-EM frontier feedback loop phenomenon. It's currently at 1508. This chart is from Rich Frontiers, and I think we're going definitely to 1550. The JSE All Share closed down 4.28% or 2,454 points. Bad day. That's from Nick Kunze 2. The South African All Shares minus 3.86% year to date. Egyptian pound 15.58. Nigeria's economy grew 2.55% in Q4 last year, more than the Bloomberg consensus estimate of 2.2% and the highest quarterly figure since Q3 2015. The economy grew 2.3% for all of last year. That, I'm afraid, is the high watermark for Nigeria. This year is going to be significantly slower. Nigeria GDP growth 2016 minus 1.58%, 2017 minus 0.82%, 2018 plus 1.91%, 2019 plus 2.27%. Nigerian All Shares up 0.74% year to date. Ghana Stock Exchange down 2.34% year to date. This is a video of Mauritania's capital, Nouakchott, which is covered by a thick cloud of sand and dust via the AFP. Zambia Unhealthy Bank Balance, Africa Confidential. Finance Minister Ng'andu's January request for a funded program from the IMF may be in danger from continued borrowing beyond the Treasury's control, financial sources in Lusaka told Africa Confidential. IMF sources have confirmed the request. Any deal with the fund would require borrowing to be curbed, but the ruling Patriotic Front is still filling its campaign coffers using new loans and inflated contracts. We hear 14th of October, in an article called Ozymandias, I said the canary in the coal mine is Zambia. Daily Nation, which is reporting on the SGR under the hashtag Pillars of Greed. Mega rip-off, more than a gravy train. The SGR project was outright robbery, where Kenyans paid $1 billion shillings for grass and 239 million to entertain Chinese contractors who lived like kings on top dollar salaries. Contract documents reveal. The money went directly from China Exim Bank to CRBC accounts, denying the country any local stimulus, mere thaka. Contract explicitly stated it would not be made public if easily verifiable items were so heavily overpriced. What of the technical items, he asks. Inside the unbridled greed and negligence of Kenya's mega project. 9th of December, I was quoting David and D, and he was writing in The Elephant at that time, and he said, an IMF straitjacket is a fitting end to Jubilee's reign of hubris, plunder, blunder, squander, and abracadabra. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains round the decay of that colossal wreck. Boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. The NSE opposes a move by Kenya's capital markets to create a recovery board to manage listed but financially troubled companies. That's via Bank Kalele. Tallow oil is at 36 pence 1 year, down 83.4%. This is a record low, I think. And if Connaught don't swoop in now, they never will. Nairobi All Share down 4.82% year to date. NSE20 down 5.68% year to date. Thank you for stopping by.